about getting that role in the Mojave Kid?
Well, it was out of necessity, because I had a wife and four children. MGM had dropped my contract, having had publicity all over the world. They created a persona, on the screen, the Latin lover kind of thing. Money, every week I get paid. Now all of a sudden it stops. No publicity, no. I have a wife, four children. What am I going to do? The thing that was available was live television, which not many actors wanted to do, and they offered me that, and my agent, I guess, went after it. I said, "Yeah, great," until the gunplay uh, began to happen. It was scary, but the funny thing about it was the director. I mean, the place opened with a bar, those doors that go like this in a bar, not revolving, but
Saloon
they swing like that anyway. So about the swing goes open and the bartender throws his bum out and his son stay out. As they going and stay out, and he cocks it, goes pow, 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 ha 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 ha, and he goes in. So when that was going, I said, I wish that were the role that I played. So easy to go pow, pow, pow. It was like, oh. Well, what happened? You won't believe this. The guy said, and stay out. Click, click, click. The thing jammed. And when he did that, the soundman went, pow, pow, pow. That was the beginning of it. I mean, I thought, what's going to happen to me with this quick draw and the thing? And so that was the beginning. It was one of the most hair-rising experiences I've ever had in my life.
In general, when you were working in live television, how long did you have between the time you got the part until the time you were on the air?
Maybe 3 weeks, but we rehearsed for 2 weeks. Funny thing happened to me. When you did a live television show, you were rehearsing, and the night where they showed the previous television show, let's say, no, the night, no, when they go in, you announced next week's television show. That's what it was. So I had to be the announcer. And they put you in a little against the wall or something and said, next week, ladies and gentlemen, we're proud to present to you a very exciting drama called. Now the name of the program was The Killing Fog. The Killing Fog. Now, at that time, I was a little afraid of fog because I mispronounced it very easily, and instead of an O, it became a U. The Killing Fog. You see, and no, it's not the Killing Fog, it's the Killing Fog. Okay. So I got so nervous. This is live now. Ladies and gentlemen, next week, we're proud to present a very exciting show written by so and so called The Killing Flog. Killing Flog. So I got a telegram from the writer. He says, I like your title better. He said, The Killing Flog. I was afraid of the word fog.
Did you have formal training in acting up to this point?
When I returned to to Mexico after not being able to work really in this country, really, I went back to Mexico, as I told you, and I fell into the hand. There was a picture called Five Were Chosen, and the idea was to do it in English and in Spanish. So the English cast would do and I would do it in the English, and then the Mexican cast would come in and do it in Spanish. That was the idea. So I did that picture, and they brought a casting director, no, a dialogue coach who was Japanese. This picture was directed by Herbert Klein, who had done The Forgotten Village, also by John Steinbeck. It was a wonderful, wonderful documentary, a producer and director. But this was his first film, full-length film. And it was to be with Frances Farmer, who's a wonderful, beautiful actress, really beautiful woman. But she came to Mexico and she had some mental problems. And one night, about a week before we started shooting, no, about 3 or 4 days before we started shooting, She opened the door, went through the halls totally naked with a seltzer bottle, and they would knock on the doors. And when the man would appear or the woman would go, psh, life and go to the next one. Well, they had to put her in a straitjacket, and that's when they sent her to a mental institution in this country. So what to do? The wife of the producer director became the star of the picture. Of course, she's a very wonderful lady, but she really wasn't an accomplished actress. You know. The picture was really a disaster, not very good. But the dialogue coach, his name was Seki Sano. Seki Sano was a Japanese who he wanted to bring Japan into a 20th century. And he was from a rich family. And he bought all the instruments for a symphony orchestra. He wanted to introduce symphonic music of the great composers to Japan. And he did. He was a wonderful conductor, good musician. There was an earthquake, I think it was in Yokohama, and the theater where all the instruments were there fell and destroyed all the instruments. But he didn't have enough money to buy new instruments, so he gravitated to the theater, and he started doing plays anti-imperialism. And they asked him to stop doing that, and he kept doing it. And one day they came, 3 thugs, and they beat him and left him for dead in a ravine. And the fisherman's wife found him, and I called her husband, and they brought him to the hut or whatever it was, and they nursed him to health. However, he was deaf in 1 ear from the beating, and kind of a little crippled when he walked from the beating that he had. So he wanted to leave Japan, and no country would have him because he was a rebel or something. The only country that accepted him was Russia. So he went to Russia, gravitated to the theater, very intelligent man, and became Stanislavski's assistant. And Stanislavski would allow him to conduct rehearsals. When Stanislavski was busy, he conducted the rehearsals. Seki Sano was really, really a student of so-called the method of Stanislavski. So during the war, they needed somebody to help them decode the Japanese code messages, Japanese. And this man was so well educated, he could speak on all different levels, because there are different levels of Japanese speaking, of language. And he knew the very difficult level, which is the armed forces, or whatever you call it. And so he helped destroy or decode the Japanese code in Washington. So now Herbert Klein brought him to Mexico, and the actors, the American actors were Howard Da Silva, Art Smith, Leonid Kinski, and so forth. And some of them had been sort of on friendly tent kind of thing. They were of the Communist Party. And Seki Sano was a devout communist. And I got to know him very well during the shooting. And after the shooting, he stayed in Mexico. And he went to work with the Railroad Workers Union to convince them to become communists, a communist union. That's what he wanted. And he did plays with them, And I went to see him, Seki Sano. I said, Seki, we need you. We're actors. I mean, the railroad workers, but please don't. So I convinced him, and he started teaching then actors. And that's when I worked for him I worked for 2 years with him. And his method, Stanislavski's method, was so pure and so wonderful. I studied, I said, for 2 years with him. And then I went, when I was in New York doing a play with Lena Horne, I was admitted as an observer at the Actors Studio. And what I saw was wonderful, interesting, but very different from what Seki Sano used to do. In the Actors Studio, I noticed that there was a little self-indulgent. So sometimes you couldn't hear, the exercises where the actors were saying, the diction was not cared for. Like Bobby Lewis, who was a member of original Actors Studio, he left with Stella Adler left, And Bobby Lewis said that every performance should have thick, Thec, thick, should have humor. Uh, no, it should have truth. Sorry, thick, truth, humor, energy, and clarity. Very important. See, and so. In the actor studio, maybe later they did, but during this exercises, and also I noticed a thing about using but Sekisano was just the opposite. It was, don't use anybody, give to somebody. Because it's in giving that you receive. Give, you know. Don't try to steal a scene, because if you steal a scene, there's no scene. It's been stolen. Contribute to the scene. Give. That was a constant message that he gave. Truth, you know. I benefited a great deal from him. His teachings have dictated my career from the beginning.
What year were you studying with him?
With Sekisano? From 41 to 43. No. Yeah, something like 1941 to 43, I believe, yes.
And when you went into television, were you able to use those same concepts for television in the same way you use them in film?
Yes, because you see, I played a great variety on television because they didn't write for Mexicans, Hollywood. So I had to play Greeks, Italians, which I speak Italian. That's easy. French, Greeks, German. I did a play called Autumn Crocus, in which I was an innkeeper, a German innkeeper, and I worked very hard with my accent with a professor at UCLA. And so I had a great variety of roles, but some were comedic, some were villains, some, you know. But according to Sekisano, my training is you don't play a villain, you don't play a saint. The people around you think that you're a saint. You do saintly things, but you don't think I'm a saint or I'm a villain. You know, you are a human being that somehow circumstances put him on a road of crime or something, but you don't think of yourself as being a criminal. You play, as an actor, you play the role. You play the intent of the writer. What is his intent in this thing? And so you play everything honestly, whether it be comedy, tragedy, unless you're doing complete farce or something. Then you put a funny hat or something. But if it's comedy or tragedy or action or whatever it is, you play the role as honest as you possibly can, with truth, humor, energy, and clarity.
Was there a specific type of role that you enjoyed doing more than others?
The roles that I think probably any actor would say are fun to play are villains, because the villain, for some reason, is written more colorful with a more colorful pen than the good guy, you know. So the villain is fun to play without gilding the lily, you know. I'm playing the villain, no, but it's fun to play. What made him a villain? Why does he react this way? Why? So your performances can be a little richer playing a villain than playing the good guy.
Let's go back to some of your specific TV appearances. The first being you appeared many times on the Loretta Young Show. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Loretta Young was my sister-in-law. I married her youngest sister. Was at the time suffering from, I don't know if it was her appendix that went wrong. I forgot what it was, but she was hospitalized. So every actor would come and present, because Loretta Young Show started with Loretta coming through a door and whirling around a beautiful gown. That was the entrance that all the women loved to see, you know. So that was the beginning. Instead of that, they would have the actors who would come and do it for her, you know, present the Loretta Young Show. John Wayne did it, and I did a couple of shows and everything. But I remember one day in presenting the show, ladies and gentlemen, this is happy to have the Loretta Young Show. So you were acting as Ricardo Montalban. You were not playing a role. You were introducing the Loretta Young Show. So I was standing with Merle Oberon. Merle Oberon, distinguished actress, and Merle Oberon was scared to do that. Said to the presentation. I preceded her, and I did. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. this week we have this and this and that. That's a show that I think you'll enjoy. This and that. And so, thank you so much. We'll see you next week. And I came back, and she was, how could you do that? How did you do that? What do you mean, Meryl? I mean to talk in front of the camera without playing a role. I said, my God, with your experience, Meryl, my goodness, hundreds of pictures, you know. She says, yes, but you have to be yourself. How did you do that? I said, well, just be yourself. She was scared to death. And she said, do you think I'm scared? How about Joseph Schildkraut? There was a show called Schlitz Playhouse. Schlitz Playhouse. And Joseph Schildkraut was indeed a distinguished Shakespearean actor and consummate actor. He got scared being himself. And he came and ladies and gentlemen, I made mistake. And they said, whatever, let's rest him. Let's have a lunch now. When you come back from lunch, you'll be more relaxed. And he would go, mistake. And finally, they're all holding their breath. No mistakes. And finally says, this is Joseph Schlitz saying goodbye, saying hello from Schildkraut's Playhouse. You know, his name was Schildkraut. This is Joseph Schlitz saying hello for Joseph. Yeah, I mean, they couldn't do it. So it's difficult for an actor sometimes who plays different characters all of a sudden to be nude and be yourself. It's difficult for an actor sometimes to do that.
Did you also play some roles on the Loretta Young show?
Somewhat.
Did you also play some roles on the Loretta Young show?
Oh yes. No, when I did that presentation, it was because I was doing the next show. I played the priest, who happened to be, for some reason, had a great ability at hitting a baseball. You know. And so he needs money for his church for charity, and he gets an idea of going to the Cardinals, the Cardinals. And would you please? And they were in training camp, and he goes and he hits very well. So they put him as a pinch hitter, and then they're going to pay him pretty good money in the season, and he would go and hit the ball very well, you know. And at the end, it was he missed the first two, it was strike or something, and then finally hits the last one, and they give him a bonus, and was able to give that one to charity, you know. But that was the name of the priest who became a cardinal. You know, it was fun to play. Then I also did something from Colombia, South America. I did a reporter or something like that. And I don't remember exactly, but I did several roles in the Loretta Young show, yes.
Can you talk a little bit about working with Loretta Young?
I never worked with her. I did the shows when she was in the hospital, you know. She didn't participate in any of the shows that I did. I did three shows. And then she recuperated and came back, and of course she was then the star of the shows. No, was never able to act with her. I loved her. She was my sister-in-law, you know, and I loved her like a sister, not in-law at all, just like a sister.
You touched a little bit on this before, but during your years in Hollywood, were you affected at all by the blacklist and McCarthyism?
Was I accepted? No, not at all. I wasn't even aware of it somehow. I was kind of innocent or ignorant, perhaps was the better word. I didn't know anything about politics. In Mexico, I was, you know, my acting here in Hollywood, you know, MGM. I was like in seventh heaven as far as being with the best studio at that time that ever existed, MGM. So I was like floating on air, except for the roles that I got, which were always, as I said, a little. For instance, in Fiesta, let me tell you how we used to get away with dramatic license, they call it. In Fiesta took place in Mexico. My father was Fortunio Bonanova from Spain, Spanish actor, Spanish. My mother was Mary Astor, very American. My sister was Esther Williams, not only my sister, but my twin sister. Now, she had no accent, and I had accent. Now, how did that happen? I don't know. But the public in those days, when it was a kind of like a halfway musical, they didn't care. They didn't care. They were there to enjoy, forget it. And Fiesta was a very enjoyable picture. It was very enjoyable. You know, they forget the accent or anything, but but that was interesting in those days. You got away with murder in those musicals.
Let's jump to 1967, and you had referred to playing villains, and one of your best-known villains is Khan from Star Trek. Can you talk about how that came about for you?
I was doing Fantasy Island. We lasted 7 seasons, and at the end of the 6th season, during my hiatus, Harvey Bennett, producer, offered me this role of Khan, which was based on a character I had done many years ago when it was a television series. It was called Space Seed, about a Superman, it's very powerful, who is then abandoned into is it habitable, but uninhabited, no, inhabited planet, and he's left there, and that's it. That was okay. So now they go through all the different villains to see what the next show was going to be, because the original show was the villain was a ship that is computerized. Somehow something goes wrong to kill, Kirk and all the Enterprise, kill him. Now the concept is interesting because there you have as an enemy a man or an object that has no fear whatsoever. It's just to kill. It's computerized to that. Very interesting. However, there was no communication. Oh, here it comes, here it is, and suspense. But there was no communication. So we have to have a real villain. And they went through all the different villains. And when it came to mind, they said, wait a minute, it'd be interesting to see what happened to him in that planet. It was abandoned. And that was how the thing was born. Well, let's have Ricardo. It's many years later, older now. So. And when they offered me the part, it isn't that I think that there is a part that is too small for me. No, but there was in a way, because after 6 years of Fantasy Island, which was a very successful series, I wanted to be on the screen with a more important role. When I read it, I thought something. I thought, well, when I am not on the screen, they're talking about me. So it seemed, and besides, it's an interesting role. I think I can do something with it. However, I said, okay, I'll do it. I began getting acquainted with a character, which I had to bring from way back. And I began to articulate as I memorized the dialogue. And to my terrible despair, I sounded to me like Mr. Rourke of Fantasy Island. Say the audiences are going to laugh me off the screen. They're going to believe that I am Khan, the Superman. I sound like Rourke. What is it? What is it? What is it? So I called Harvey Bennett. Harvey, could you send me a print of the original Space Seed? And he sent me it, And I played it, and I played it again about 3 times. About the 3rd time, I began to remember what I thought then as an actor, what I was trying to accomplish, or what I did accomplish, whatever. And all of a sudden, it came to me. So what I have to do now is bring that character and then make it passionate, because he's blaming Kirk for the death of his wife, whom he loved passionately. And so he wants revenge. And so I have to play this character fully. I'm not going to play it safe. Play it safe. No, I'm going to play it full of passion. Vengeance, not for himself, but for the memory of his wife, whom he adored. And all of a sudden, I began to read it, and to my, I was convinced by that time that Mr. Rourke had disappeared, and that indeed I had become Khan. And then, of course, I had the great joy of working with Nicholas Meyer, who's the director, a brilliant young man. And he knew what I was doing. He let me go with passion all the way to almost there, because if you go a little farther, then you become ridiculous, If you play it safe, it's dull. So he allowed me to bring the passion up to almost at the point there, at times. And he would say, too much or too little. He really guided me beautifully, and I owe a great deal of the success that Khan had to Nicholas Meyer, and a beautifully written script.
Do you remember any specifics of doing the original series, how you were cast for the role originally?
I don't know how I was cast, except that at that time, They knew that I had a fairly good physique. I'd been working with weights and everything. I had big pectorals and good arms and so forth. And perhaps they thought that they needed some young man, which I was then, that was in good shape because he was playing a Superman. So he had to be a man who had proven that he could act, but also that he could have a bare chest and believe that he's a Superman. And I believe that's how I was cast in it. Being Khan, no nationality, the accent could be any accent of any kind. So I think that's how I was cast originally.
Was it hard to play the original character, to get a grasp on the original character?
Did I have trouble? No, because with Sekisano's training is, what was the intent of the writer? Who is this character? Go back into his background. How did he become Superman? What was his background? What is his mission in life? What is he trying to accomplish? What is, Of course, he wanted to conquer the Enterprise, to get hold of the Enterprise and become rule the world. So it was once you know the intent of the writer, and you use feck. No, there's no role that would be too difficult. I'll tell you what is difficult to do. Well, excuse me, you can ask any actor. One of the most difficult things for an actor to do is what we call exposition. Exposition. In which you have to set the stage or explain something that you're not involved, mentally. I mean, not mentally, but passionately. You're not involved with any. No emotion. Just, who is that, boss? Well, that's Miss Frances Jones from Arkansas. What's his fantasy, boss? Well, her fantasy is that when she was a little girl, her mother punished her by taking her doll away from her, and she never saw that doll again. She would like to see that doll again. Can we do that, boss? Of course, we can do that. I mean, that you cannot. You have to make it palatable. You have to use all your imagination, all the effect that you have, the humor, the energy, inventiveness, so that people don't go, while you're doing exposition. And for 7 years, that's all I did in Fantasy Island was exposition, setting the stage for somebody else, setting the stage for what was to happen. Now remember, once you start your fantasy, you cannot go back. Be sure that will you do that? All right. I mean, there was never any emotion. Never. That's why when I did Khan, I was able to really portray emotion after that. I was dying to portray emotion, and that's what happened. But exposition, to me, and to many actors that I've talked to, is the most difficult thing. Very ungrateful. Nobody's going to say, he was great doing that. No. You have to have. See, what happens very often is that many actors who are big stars, they get, I'm not going to exaggerate, but 50 scripts. And you go, that's no good. No, this, maybe it's a possibility, put it here. And finally they come to 3 of them. I say, well, this one. But in my case, as a Mexican actor, I never had the luxury of having 10 scripts or 5, or 2, 1 script. Take it or leave it. Well, I have to support my family, and I have to do it. And I realized that you're only an actor when you're acting, you see. And it was Gene Lockhart, a wonderful character actor. I got to know him, and I said, Mr. Lockhart, how does one maintain a career like yours? I mean, you will work as long as you want. You are very respected by your peers, wonderful roles. How do you do it? And that's when he said, Ricardo, you're only an actor when you're acting. You're not an actor when you're waiting for the phone to ring, hoping it's your agent to tell you to have a job. When you're waiting, you're not an actor. You're a miserable, insecure human being. You're only an actor when you're acting. So act and act some more. Don't ever turn down a role when you don't have a role, he said. Never turn down a role. Unless it goes against your principles, moral principles, or detrimental to a country or something. I would never do that. And so act and act some more, he said to me, and that's what I did.
Okay, let's stop here to change the tape.